everybody. It's great to see you today. Welcome to Living Power, your online Bible study where we're walking through the Bible in a year. Today is April 21st, and we are studying the life of David, and the intrigue is starting to get kind of intense. We are really going to look at now the war that's going on between the house of David and the house of Saul. What I'd like to do today is to remind you who the people are in the narrative and to give you just a little bit of information about these people. What I'd like to do first is talk about Joab. Joab is the individual who stabbed Abner in the reading today. He is actually he's David's nephew. He is a son of one of David's half-sisters. So they are tight, David and Joab. They are related. Joab is very much of a military man, and he actually ends up killing one of David's sons, who becomes a traitor, and he is quite instrumental in David's killing of Uriah, which we'll get to in a little bit. Now, if these names are unfamiliar to you, these stories are unfamiliar, we're going to get there. Absalom will learn who that is. Uriah will learn who that is. But I know some of you know who these people are, and I just wanted to really paint a picture of the relationship between Joab and David. They are very tight. Joab has a great deal of influence over David. However, David at this point does not compromise on what he believes to be the difference between good and evil. Now, Abner is killed by Joab in the reading today, and he is actually the commander of Saul's army. Very important person. He's actually Saul's cousin. So I don't know how old they are, but they may have been around the same age. They're cousins, that's what we know. Now, one other individual, Ishbosheth, is actually a person who Abner made king over some of the tribes. No one at this point is king of all of the 12 tribes of Israel. Saul is dead, but Abner made Ishbosheth king over some of the tribes after Saul. Abner did this, of course, to his own advantage, deliberately going against God's word. You may recall that Samuel, the prophet Samuel, anointed David over Israel. Well, as king over Israel, a future king, when David was very, very young. And the people know about this. David is much older. I think in the narrative today, David is 37 years old. So this happened when he was a teenager. It's been a very, very long time. David has been a king in waiting this whole time. And the people understand the prophecy. They know what Samuel decreed, and they know that Samuel spoke for the Lord. So it's real important here that the people know that David is the one that's supposed to be king over Israel. I like to say it this way. God made it clear that David was to rule over all Israel. But Abner wanted him to be king just over this little teeny part, and he wanted Ishbosheth to be king over a larger part of Israel. How is that like stuff that you and I do in our own life? Well, think of it this way. It's kind of like us when we only want God to rule and reign over part of our life. Not this area or this area, but just a small part. So I wonder how much of your life, if your whole life was a house, how many rooms in your house, your family room, your living room, your bedroom, your bathroom, your foyer, how many rooms in your house would you say you've invited the Lord into, you've cleaned it up together, and Jesus is comfortable in these rooms in your house because you've allowed him to come into these different areas of your life? Just a question to think about today. Now, Ishbosheth is actually killed today. We've got a lot of warring going on between the two houses. The killing of Ishbosheth was a turning point for David. We need to understand this. David, however, didn't express pleasure, did he, when he found out that his own men on his side of the camp actually went in and killed Ishbosheth. You see, David, it's been said, has a heart like God. And he recognized that that was wrong, and here's why. David knew that God could elevate him to be king in the right time. And he saw this action by his people, his men, killing this person out of God's will, out of God's timing. And he saw that it was just them trying to get ahead of the Lord, taking matters into their own hands, dealing with it in the wrong way. I wonder, maybe you're facing an issue right now and you're impatient. You're impatient with the timetable of the Lord. You know, when we study the Bible, sometimes we see the word then something happened, but then doesn't turn out to be right then. It turns out to be many, many years later. Oftentimes the Lord promises something or has a calling on our life, but He requires that many years take place before the fulfillment of whatever that is. Maybe you're in that season of waiting. And during that season of waiting, the Lord will bring experiences into our life to train us, to prepare us, to mold our character so that when the right time comes for the fulfillment of whatever that promise is, we will be adequately prepared and we will be ready. So David is a man of God. He has a heart for God. He sees that this is wrong. And David, we could say at this point in his life, would not want to do evil so good might come of it. Makes no sense to David. He would not have wanted to act that way. So it's kind of like, you ever seen a movie with good and bad guys, and the good guys, when they capture the bad guy, they don't just kill him. They capture him and take him to jail and haul him off, and so that justice will be served. It's kind of like that. We don't want to do evil so that good might come of it. That's not God's way. And so if we think about Jesus for a moment and what Jesus did, Jesus shed His own blood so He could take the throne. Someday in the future, Jesus will come again, and He will be King of Kings. He will literally take up His throne in Jerusalem and be king over all of Israel and ruler of all the world. So Jesus, when He came the first time, shed His blood shed His own blood, own being the operative word here, to gain the throne. David was not going to shed anyone else's blood so that he could get it. There's kind of some alignment here going on, and I wanted you to see that. We are at the cusp of David taking over the throne of all the 12 tribes of Israel, and that is actually in tomorrow's reading. Tomorrow during the lesson we will review what were the 3 times that David was anointed. He was anointed 3 times, and we will look at his beginning steps. What would you do if you had just become king and you were uniting 12 tribes of your nation? What do you think the first steps would be that you would take? Well, tomorrow we're going to discuss that and see what David did. I hope you'll join me then. Blessings to you. I hope this lesson was a blessing to you, and I can't wait to see you again tomorrow.